You want to see a crazy play. This is a crazy play. First things first, what you're going to notice is that okay, a New York Jets player is going to go in motion towards the middle of the field, and so a New England player follows him, which tells you, okay, it's man coverage. And basically what we know at this point is that. We know that those four New England players are going to be covering those four New York players. There is another player who's going to be covering Bell. We don't know exactly which one, but we do know that another Patriot player, probably one of the linebackers in the middle of the field, will be covering Bell. So that's what we know. Also, one thing you can gather just from looking at this play pre-snap is that there's no safety deep, meaning that this is a cover zero play. So basically, it's all one-on-one matchups across the board, which is pretty interesting and definitely something that can work out pretty well for New York. I mean, have a receiver run a go route or something deep. You can definitely throw up a jump ball, and who knows, maybe you can get a completion and they can break a tackle and go all the way for a touchdown. One other interesting thing about this play is that this is a 3rd down and 15. So New England running a cover zero on 3rd and 15. There's really 2 reasons why you would do this. One of them is you just feel so confident in yourself that you'll be able to generate pressure by sending, more defenders than they have blockers, that you can then make sure that a New York player can't even get downfield to get the 15 yards. But at the same time, I mean, you could have a player just run 20 yards down the field and just have the quarterback in the game throw a jump ball. But the other reason why they're doing this is because the quarterback in this game right now, it isn't even Sam Darnold, it's Luke Falk. So New England basically just feels so confident that they're just not going to even be bothering right here. But here's what's crazy about this play for me. So this is a designed run for Bell. That's what they're doing. They're basically just saying, you know what, let's see if we can catch them, without expecting this to be a running play. We'll just run it, gain some yards. Won't get the first down, but we can play the field position game a little bit. But now that you're in this situation and you see it's a cover zero, you might as well just throw one deep. You might as well just audible and try something. However, they're not going to do that. Falk is still going to run the ball with Bell, and Bell just has no chance to gain any yards on this play. He ends up losing 8, which to me, this is kind of a lot of really what Bell was going up against when he played for the New York Jets. He did a lot of just having absolutely no opportunities because they just really would not put him in positions to succeed a lot of times. I find it fascinating how people are quick to give Sam Darnold excuses, say that he wasn't in a great situation, didn't have a lot going for him, not many receivers, terrible offensive line. Well, I mean, you could really say the same for Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he was not in a great situation either whatsoever. I really don't feel like a lot of what went wrong was his fault. And this plays another interesting example where this is the same game. I am showing a couple plays where Darnold isn't there because I want to show sort of the more extreme example. But, I mean, take this play. Right off the bat, you notice that there are a lot of New England players who could potentially help stop the run. There's actually 6 players who are on the line. You have several defensive linemen and linebackers. You also do have a defensive back who's on the line. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have 2 linebackers as well. Or actually, 1 linebacker and 1 defensive back are going to be in the middle of the field, so they can kind of run over and block whoever. Worth noting, yes, number 30 on the right, the one who's circled, he is, kind of lined up on the line, but he's also a bit off, kind of covering a receiver more than anything. So this is essentially just like a 5-2 type scheme. And really, I mean, at this point, you figure, okay, if there's 8 guys who could potentially stop the run, there has to be something else that's open, right? And there is. I mean, if you look at this angle, they could easily just run that play. This is the same play, same situation, same spot. I just changed the camera angle. And if they just ran something like that, a little pick, then the receiver who were to run towards the sideline would easily get wide open. But again, this is just the nature of not audibling at this point, and New England is not afraid of something like this happening because they know that the Jets do not trust their passing game. So anyways, the way this play is supposed to work is that they're going to have that blocking concept right there. That's what they're trying to do. So a lot of one-on-one matchups, there is one double team, and then one of those players will get off and block just one of the 2 New England players who's in the middle of the field. That's the way this is supposed to work. So basically, right off the bat, there's going to be a lot of one-on-one matchups, and there's going to be an unblocked New England player. Not to mention, one of the one-on-one matchups is going to be a center going up straight up against a nose tackle, which is just never a good situation. This is just a very bad situation, and you're going to see why, as, that New England player just easily wins his matchup, moves the line of scrimmage several yards back. So now at this point for Bell, I mean, think about it. How is he supposed to do this? He has to focus on getting around that player. He pretty much has to run to his right, which is to the left side of the screen, and then he's going to have to try to cut back and try to get through that gap, and that's just going to be very difficult to pull off. And he just, he does his best, but he isn't able to gain anything because of that one matchup, because you have a center going one-on-one against a nose tackle, and you don't have a center who really is capable of doing that. So, those two plays right there really, I think, really do go to show that Bell just was not in a position to succeed. So that's part of it. But, then the other question becomes, well, okay, so clearly he wasn't in a great situation. I think we all kind of knew that, though. The real question is, when he did have actually some decent things go his way, was he able to come through? And in some ways, he absolutely was. Like, take a look at this play, where what's going to happen is that really those are the three blocks you need to take a look at. It's both guards, and then the center will be the main part of this. The center and the right guard double team a Raider, move up to block a linebacker, and then the left guard just has a one-on-one matchup. Bell tries to run in between the left guard and the center. However, after the ball is snapped, it does take that center a little bit longer to get up to try to block the linebacker. Nothing crazy, but it definitely has taken him a bit longer. So now at this point, he's trying to get up and make that play, and Bell kind of has to be patient here, which is definitely something he knows how to do. He can't go too quickly. He wants to just wait a little bit longer to allow this gap to move a little bit more. So watch how he kind of fakes. He's going somewhere, goes somewhere else, is able to run forward, picks up 6 yards, nothing wild, but a very good play, and also just a good job of realizing the situation and being able to be patient enough to gain as many yards as possible and turn what could have only been a 2-yard gain into something a little bit better. And that's really what a running back's job is. It's not like to gain as many, you can't credit a running back entirely for a 20-yard gain, and you can't blame them entirely for a 0-yard gain. It's all about, most runs, your offensive line is going to give you, if it's a 20-yard gain, they probably gave you 15 yards, and then you did the rest to get the extra 5. Typically, it's something like that. Or if you're a poor running back, then your offensive line gave you 15 yards, but you only was able to get 10. But, it's something like that. This play's another interesting one where that's the blocking concept. A couple of double teams in the middle. So you would think that Bell will try to run right there, in between the right guard and right tackle. That would make a lot of sense. However, after the ball is snapped, he notices that another option formed. He could still run in that direction. There is a gap there, but there's actually a bigger gap over there, and it's closer to the sideline where there just are less Oakland players. And so Bell was going to say, okay, I'll go there instead. That's what he does, and he picks up a lot more yards. And he still does have that burst, as you see. And I do feel like Bell is the kind of player that, his vision is really where he makes his money, and his vision is fantastic. It still is. He's still probably the smartest running back in the NFL, even despite maybe his numbers being way down. I know the numbers are terrible, but at the same time, he definitely has shown flashes, and he's shown flashes in just an abysmal offense. Also, one thing we have to mention when talking about Bell is you can never just talk about his running game. You always have to bring up the passing game, because one of the things that makes him so effective is that he can run routes like a receiver, and he also plays running back. So he does both those things so well. It makes him very difficult to cover, and it just makes him a matchup nightmare in general. This play is an interesting example where it's going to be a cover one play, and Bell is off to the side, and those are the routes that the two New York players are running. Bell's route is the one that's going to go over towards the sideline on the bottom of the screen, so that's what he's doing. This is man coverage, and actually he has a defensive back on him, so it's not like he even has the advantage of being up against a linebacker. He's going up against a defensive back. Now, right when this ball is snapped, Bell is able to run a pretty good route, gets relatively open. There is some space. He's not wide open, but there is a little bit of separation. And this is actually not going to be a perfect throw as well. Ideally, you'd want to get a little bit closer to the sideline than he's going to end up getting it. But look at how Bell is able to still make a very good catch. Again, it wasn't a bad throw either, but it was just wasn't a perfect throw. It was just a good throw, and Bell was able to make a great catch. And really, I mean, he looks like a wide receiver out there at times, and he honestly could play wide receiver. I think that's something that maybe if the running doesn't get any better, maybe let's say next season the running gets worse, maybe he could even think about transitioning to a receiver full time. I could definitely see that. So that certainly is something it's absolutely something he can do. It's something that he always can bring to the table. And I think that's one of the reasons why I still think that he's a pretty good player, even though he only averaged 3.2 yards per carry last year. A lot of it really wasn't his fault. I mean, it was a lot of just teams he was facing a lot of stacked boxes. He was facing a lot of teams that were making him a big part of their defense, and largely because they just didn't have to respect the passing game in any way. And also, the offensive line wasn't very good. So, when you're expecting a run and the offensive line isn't very good, well, it's a recipe for disaster for a running back. It certainly is. I hope to see him play a little bit better in the future. He is 28 years old now, so he's getting up there in terms of running back years, but I think he probably still has 1 or 2 good years left in him. And also worth mentioning, in his first year in Pittsburgh, he only had 3.5 yards per carry. And you might be thinking, okay, he probably didn't have that many carries. Actually, no. He only had 1 less carry in 2013 than in 2019. He had 244 in 2013, and he had 245 in 2019. So, who knows? Maybe you get him some better offensive line help. Maybe perhaps that he can finally start to play better. We'll see. And I felt like he played fine. The numbers weren't there, but I didn't think that he was a mess by any means. And he still played solid in the passing game. So I actually don't think Bell has fallen off a cliff just yet. I'm not, again, he's a running back, so it's really hard to evaluate totally just because of how terrible the situation is. But I still think he has value, and really you can't know how much value that is unless you can get some semblance of an offensive line in front of him. Hopefully that's what the New York Jets did this offseason, and he can definitely be better in the future. We'll see. But, I'm interested in passing the question off to you guys. What do you think? Is Le'Veon Bell somebody who definitely is still a good player, just in a bad situation, or has he fallen off a cliff? Always interested in hearing what you guys have to say. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.